rather than in your composition book, today your warm-up will be in your workbook on page 349. You will need transparency paper or tracing paper and a straight edge. On that page, you are going to start by translating along that vector xy, and then underneath your picture, please complete these two problems. The answer for these three questions should be on that page in your workbook. In class, we're going to do an activity where we are given 8 cards to sort, and you're going to sort them into 2 separate piles. Here we have the first grouping of cards. So cards 1, 2, 4, and 8 are grouped together. All of these have been moved using rigid motion, and the rigid motion that took place here was a translation. We just slide it to make the new one. Slide it over to match up with the new one. But cards 3, 6, 7, and 9, if you were to slide this, point C would be up here, but it's on this section. If we were to slide this over, this would say D prime, and this one would say C prime. Here I would have A and B. So these aren't just translations. These all require reflections. So this group, 3, 6, 7, and 9, all require reflections. You are going to start by reflecting today in these problems, but before we do that, we're going to watch a short clip on how to complete a reflection or what that process looks like. You're going to need tracing paper, a writing utensil, and a straight edge, such as a ruler. On your tracing paper, you'll trace your figure and your line of reflection. To reflect, we flip our paper over the line of reflection and then label the image in its new location on the original paper. And use a straight edge to connect any segments. Don't forget to label your picture using primes for the new version that you created. If your reflection shows up on the same side of the line, that means you didn't actually reflect over the line. In order to create a reflection, it needs to go to the other side of the line. So if you flipped your paper over, but it didn't move to the other side of the line, that means you need to flip your paper the other direction. So just like before when I was creating translations in the previous lesson, I'm going to show anything that I put on my tracing paper in red and anything that I put on my workbook page in gray or black to represent your pencil on your workbook. So we're going to start on our tracing paper by tracing the line of reflection and the figure. We want to make sure that we get the ends of the line so that we know where to put our line when we flip our paper over. This is going on our tracing paper. Then we are tracing the figure. Then we will take our tracing paper and flip it over. Now that my tracing paper is flipped over, I need to make sure that the line of reflection is lined up with the line from before. So I don't want to be down here. I want to make sure that my line lines up perfectly on top of the line before. Now we are going to either push really hard on your tracing paper or poke some points in the corners through your tracing paper, but we are going to put the figure in its new location. And we need to label it. C is closest to the line, with D as well, and then B has been moved over to the outside, and so has A. Draw and label the image of figure ABCDE under a reflection across GH. We're going to start by tracing on our tracing paper the line of reflection and the figure. Now take that tracing paper and flip it over. Then we need to line up our line from before with the line on our tracing paper. We don't want it to be at any angle. We want it to be perfectly on top of the line underneath. And label your figure. If it's helpful, you can put the letters on your tracing paper so that way you know where those letters have moved to. See, I just got that mixed up. D is closest to the line, and E is farthest away. C is close to the line, and B is far away, and then A prime is that little piece in the middle. Draw and label the image of figure AB under a reflection across line L. On our tracing paper, trace the line and the figure. Since this figure is a curve, we're just going to trace it as best we can. Then take that tracing paper and flip it over the line. If yours looks like this, ask yourself, did it go over the line, or is it still on the same side of the line? If your paper looks like this, we need to flip ours the opposite way. Instead of flipping it across, we need to flip it up and down to go over the line. And we're going to go line up the line with its line underneath. And then we're going to trace that figure in its new location in our workbook. This is B prime and A prime. With the curve, just do the best you can. We can't use a straight edge in this problem, so it's going to be an approximation. Draw and label the image of ACE under the reflection across RS. RS is going to go on our tracing paper. We will also be tracing R and S as well, those points on the line. And E, A, and C. We're using a straight edge whenever possible. Now we're going to reflect over the line. Make sure our line is lined up. And we will trace our figures on our actual workbook page. Draw and label the image of figure FILM under a reflection across line L. Get that line on your tracing paper. Make sure it goes the whole distance of the line underneath. Trace the figure. I would also label on your tracing paper which one is which, just to help you out. Then with that tracing paper, flip it over the line. And now we're going to draw in its new location. And label it with primes. This is M prime, L prime, I prime, and F prime. This one overlaps a little bit because they had sections on both sides of the line. Here we have an example of a reflection. It says a reflection across line L. We're labeling that line's name. Maps a figure to its image. For example, in this case, a reflection across line L maps P to P prime. Make sure that your workbook is filled in, that you've used a straight edge whenever possible. All of your points are labeled, and your warm-up is finished in your workbook.